I'm Dr. Sandra Brown. I'm an ophthalmologist in North Carolina. I have no financial conflicts of interest. I'd like to talk to you today about prescribing biologic eye drops, not what you think it means. Rebecca's bottom lines on this talk are as follows. First, just because a doctor prescribed it does not make it a prescription drug. And second, there are many routes to being prescribed, but only one path to being a prescription drug. And as I was wrestling with how best to get this information across, she was objecting to my approach because it was a little bit too techno-geeky. And she just threw out both of these sentences. And I said, that's perfect. That's my message. And I'm going to credit you. First of all, why would anybody say something is prescription only? Well, the words prescription only carry with them an automatic amount of credibility and trust. There is the assumption that someone, which is to say the Food and Drug Administration, has vetted the drug. And there's also the assumption that this product is more potent than a similar over-the-counter product. And you might be particularly inclined to believe this if the product was also much more expensive than a typical over-the-counter product. And those of you who have watched my videos on label, off label, no label, know that I talked quite a bit about the package insert. In pretty much every product you can imagine, certainly every prescription product, folded up down there inside that box, or in the bag if you got it from your pharmacy, is this very thin paper, which has been multiply folded, worse than a roadmap, and that's the product label or the package insert. And as U.S. consumers, we are pretty much programmed to associate the word prescription with this package insert, which we never read because it's in a do not read me font size. But if we did read it, we would find that it represented an exhaustive FDA safety assessment. Now, no drug is perfectly safe, but if you've got this package label in there, you can feel pretty confident that this drug is not stupidly unsafe. So the word prescription has the strong implication of drug safety. The FDA has taken a look at it. It'll help you more often than it will hurt you. What about those routes to being prescribed? There are a lot of routes to being prescribed. The manufacturer might say, only available by prescription. Online retailers say prescription only. Your eye care provider says, I'll prescribe it for you. Trade and business journals refer to prescription from eye doctors. And if you ask the internet, does a certain biologic eye drop require prescription? The internet says yes. And here's some examples of all of these routes to being prescribed. First, ask Dr. Google. And you can see there at the bottom, do you need a prescription for Blue Box? Answer, both products which are only available by prescription through eye doctors. How about asking an online retailer that specializes in dry eye products? This product requires a prescription from your doctor. For $174.95, you really would not imagine that it's a straight-up over-the-counter eye drop. How about same online retailer, less expensive product? At $79, it still requires a doctor's prescription. The manufacturer will also describe their product as prescription only. And here's Stimuli saying that in two different places. Prescription only, patient pay prescription. Here's a testimonial from a physician who's actually used this product called Amdrop. And he says once again that he prescribes it. And another online retailer who says in a chat with a patient inquiring, you must have a doctor prescription. You'll even find the same language in trade journals that talk about the business of eye care. Once again, only available by prescription through eye doctors. Pretty much everywhere you turn, the main biologic eye drops that are on the market currently will very prominently and repeatedly use the language of prescribing and avoid the language of over-the-counter. The FDA, unsurprisingly, has a very definite opinion on what constitutes a prescription drug. Prescription drugs are prescribed by a doctor, bought at a pharmacy, intended for use by only one person, unlike your bottle of cold medication, and regulated by the FDA through the new drug application process. Let's break this down a little bit. And this is the one path to being a prescription drug. This is a drug which is regulated by the Food and Drug Administration through the new drug application process. This kind of drug will have a human prescription drug label on my favorite website, DailyMed. Over-the-counter drugs do not go through the NDA process. So, if it's regulated by the FDA, and the FDA requires that it have a new drug application and go through that process, including 3-phase clinical trials, the drug is going to end up being a prescription drug, not an over-the-counter drug. And DailyMed will tell you this one way or the other, for sure. So check DailyMed. And here's DailyMed for oxybate, which is a biologic. In fact, it's recombinant human nerve growth factor. And you can see that it says it has a human prescription drug label. Compare this to Sustain, which we all know as an over-the-counter lubricating eye drop. It has a human over-the-counter drug label. That was easy. Things that do not mean that this drug is an FDA-approved prescription drug. Having a national drug code on DailyMed. Over-the-counter drugs have national drug codes. Having an FDA indication. Over-the-counter drugs have indications also. In fact, they're required to have at least one indication. And here's the biggie, being written on your doctor's prescription pad. We'll get back to that in a moment. Let's consider another bullet point. Prescription drugs are bought at a pharmacy. This means they are not bought at your eye care provider's office, online from the manufacturer, or online from dry eye retailers. And pharmacy spoiler alert, you need to watch out for fulfillment pharmacies like Truax Patient Services. Truax Patient Services ships stimuli after your eye care provider contacts them or goes through the M2 Biologics webpage to tell them that you are interested in purchasing and using stimuli. Stimuli's DailyMed listing were just invisible. But using Truax Patient Services adds another layer of credibility to this product and further reinforces your impression that it is a true prescription eye drop. Another pharmacy spoiler alert, if you can't buy it, even special order, at a big chain pharmacy or at Joe's Corner Pharmacy, it is not an FDA-approved prescription drug. And another clue to a non-approved product, first you place the order and pay, and then the seller calls your eye care provider for authorization to ship you this drug. But I can hear you asking, why is my eye care provider saying prescribed? And I don't know. I don't think that there is intended deception. The imprecise use of this word may be a bit culture specific, by which I mean that it may be used differently by optometrists versus ophthalmologists. I think that most ophthalmologists would say that they recommend an over-the-counter product. That's the language that I use and my associates use. Whereas we would reserve the word prescribed for true FDA-approved drugs, which will be dispensed by a pharmacy and which we typically e-prescribe. However, in optometric offices, manufacturers and their drug reps may encourage the use of the word prescribed when an over-the-counter product is being promoted because this helps to create a distinction between boutique office-based products and chain pharmacy products. Next question, why did my eye care provider write it on a prescription pad? Well, for this you can definitely blame insurance companies. The prescription pad used to be sacred, but not anymore. Over-the-counter products can often be reimbursed through medical spending accounts or flexible spending accounts if written on a prescription pad or sometimes e-prescribed. So this is how the prescription pad has been crossed over into use for over-the-counter products. And here's a clue. Products without a national drug code cannot be e-prescribed. So if you ask your eye care provider to e-prescribe your stimuli, it's not going to work. The use of the word prescription as opposed to recommendation is not just a harmless mistake. Because what you take away from the conversation when the word prescription or prescribed is used is that this drug is safe. As I mentioned earlier, the FDA has vetted it. But the truth is that the FDA hasn't vetted it. And when they do roll into these factories to take a look at how these products are being manufactured, what they find is really alarming. And if you want to read a couple of really alarming warning letters, read the letters to Vidi Labs and Biolab Sciences, because what the FDA found in those so-called clean rooms was gross. Snail says he would have felt right at home on their floors. Be smart, trust but verify. Even your eye care provider doesn't know what he doesn't know. Everyone makes assumptions, and some assumptions are easier to make than others. The key assumption that eye care providers make is that no one would lie to me like this about the FDA drug approval status. It's really just an incredible thought that a manufacturer would induce or persuade or mislead a healthcare provider as to the legality of the product that they're promoting. I think this is such a never before thought of possibility that many eye care providers are still resisting it. And then they go on to assumption number 2, which is the FDA will stop manufacturers who make unapproved drugs. Do not assume that the word prescribed equals FDA approved. How are you going to verify? DailyMed is your friend. And as far as the FDA stopping manufacturers, if you take a look at the FDA warning letter to Biolab Sciences, you can see that they were inspected on September 3rd of 2021, and they got their warning letter on August 23rd of 2022. So we have no idea how far behind the FDA is on its inspection, but we're guessing, what with COVID, kind of far. Everyone at biologiceyedrops.org is sincerely hoping that the Food and Drug Administration gets up off its chair and takes a trip to Florida. And the more that those of you who have had problems from biologic eye drops take the time to call or write the FDA, the more likely this is to happen. So please do that. And even if you haven't had a complication, if you feel that you've been profoundly misled and you are out of pocket hundreds or thousands of dollars for a useless product, you can file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, which is actually a lot easier than doing a MedWatch report. So if that's you, not harmed except financially, which is a very real form of harm, please reach out to the FTC or consider filing a complaint with the Attorney General's office in your own state. You can do it. If I can make these PowerPoints, you can find that webpage and do an online complaint. Thank you for listening.